This Shabbat carries a special designation in addition to it being our volunteer Shabbat. This is also Shabbat Zachor, and the name for Shabbat Zachor derives from the first word of the maftir that Rebecca Steinman is going to chant in just a moment. The story of Zachor is the story of Amalek, who is the quintessential villain of the Jewish story, connected with Haman and with Purim that's coming up this Monday night and Tuesday. My teacher, Rabbi Elijah Shochet, writes the following in his introduction to his book, Amalek, the Enemy Within. Amalek has become more than one hostile nation, making several brief appearances upon the stage of Israel's history. Amalek has come to represent in vivid terms the phenomenon of evil, which confronts and challenges not only Israel, but all of humanity, undergoing a remarkable transformation from an external to an internal enemy, all the more lethal because of its insidiousness. As an internal enemy identified as the inner repository of evil, Amalek is seen to reside within us, and therefore we ourselves have become the enemy. And he brings Alexander Solzhenitsyn from the Gulag Archipelago, who writes, "If only it were all so simple, if only there were evil people somewhere insidiously committing evil deeds, and it were necessary only to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. But the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being, and who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart?" When I'm in Israel and I'm asked my name, I frequently have to clarify for people. The family name Burg is pronounced the same in English, whether you spell it B-U-R-G or B-E-R-G, but in Hebrew, I have to be more specific. Korim li Burg, lo Berg. My name is Burg, B-U-R-G, not Burg, B-E-R-G. If this is still unclear, to say the hotel clerk or security guard, I'll say Burg, como Avram. That is to say, the old German spelling, like Avramborg. Well, I'm not aware of any family connection to mine. The name Burg, B-U-R-G, Bet Vav Reish Gimel, is well known to Israelis. Dr. Yosef Burg was a founder of the Mafdal, the National Religious Party, and a longtime government minister. Avram Burg is a peace activist who served in numerous Israeli leadership roles, including chairman of the Jewish Agency and the WZO, speaker of the Knesset, and even acting president of Israel for a short time. There have been many shocking and disturbing headlines these past couple of weeks in the Israeli and global press, and there have been horrifying events and images seared into many of our memories. Among the images that I can't quite shake is the video footage of 68-year-old Avram Burg engaged in peaceful civil disobedience, being shoved to the ground by Israeli soldiers. This may seem like a small thing in comparison to the escalating terrorist violence committed by Palestinians against Israelis. As an act of violence, pushing an unarmed former Speaker of Parliament repeatedly until he falls certainly does not compare to the settler rampage against the entire town of Hawara, a criminal pogrom committed by hundreds of Israeli settlers against innocent civilians, exacting collective vengeance on unsuspecting and undeserving Palestinian civilians. It was that rampage which Yossi Klein Halevi and others have called a pogrom. He said, the first example in thousands of years of an organized mass Jewish pogrom. That is a pogrom committed by Jews, not to Jews. Dozens of homes set on fire with families still inside, saved only by the actions of the IDF, dozens of injuries, and a Palestinian murdered. It was that collective terrorist act that inspired the Israeli Solidarity March in Hawara this week, where hundreds of peace activists were turned away while Israeli settlers, inheritors, believe it or not, of Yosef Burg's national religious ideology, ostensibly, but not at all in practice, of course, we're still permitted to move freely through the Palestinian town. You may have been following the news about Bezalel Smotrich, who is the leader of what has become of the National Religious Party, and the controversy around his coming to the United States and his controversy about his still, I believe, scheduled appearance before the National Conference of Israel Bonds. My goal today is not to try to unpack these events. The judicial review bills, Bibi's incitements, water cannons in Tel Aviv, Sarah Netanyahu's hairdo, or the current government's lurch toward authoritarianism. But I mention it now because I know the situation in Israel is on a lot of our minds, and many of us feel a desire to process those feelings in community. So next week, after services during Kiddush lunch, we'll have an opportunity to do so at a discussion that I'll facilitate in rooms Aleph and Bet. No one is required to come, but all are invited, particularly if your attendance is motivated as much by a desire to listen to your co-congregants as to a desire to express your own feelings or views. Additionally, I want to put on your radar an event May 3rd here at Beth Am, the week after Yom Ha'atzmaut, which this year will be Israel's 75th birthday. We'll have an in-person talk by Samuel Sokol, a reporter from Haaretz, Israel's paper of record. An expert on Ukrainian Jewry, Sam will discuss the year-plus-long Russian war of aggression and how Putin's violence and rhetoric has affected the Jewish community in Ukraine. But Sam will also respond to questions about the situation in Israel, which he covers regularly as a journalist based in Tel Aviv. I hope you'll join me for that in May. For now,